I don't know if you heard the news last week, but the world lost a remarkable woman with the passing of Eva Kor. In fact, I got a phone call from Rocky. I think it was either early Thursday or early Friday morning. Got the phone call from Rocky that Eva Kor had passed away. She was back in Poland. She was actually in the middle of another week of giving a personal tour of Auschwitz. Eva is a Holocaust survivor who brought her personal story here to Montana, and she brought many Montanans back to Auschwitz, where she led personal tours of the concentration camp that was home to her torturer, the Nazi doctor Mengele. Eva was known as one of the Mengele twins. And so, Rocky Erickson, he's made the trip back to Auschwitz with Eva Kor. And Billings West High teacher Rob Stanton, he also teaches a genocide class at West High. And so he's really one of the big reasons why Eva Kor has gotten, why so many folks right here in Billings have gotten a chance to get to know Eva Kor and hear her story personally, is thanks to his efforts. Well, 3 Billings students were actually with Eva Kor in Auschwitz the week before she died. In fact, I wanted to catch up with these students anyway. In fact, one of the students is a cousin of mine, and I said, "Hey, you got to join us on the radio after you get back from your trip with Eva Kor, because I've gotten a chance to interview her. I've gotten a chance to meet her in person, and so we want to keep her story alive." But that was even before we heard this news about Eva passing away last week. And so anyway, we're very pleased now to welcome with us here in studio 3 recent graduates of Billings West High who just got back from Auschwitz about a week and a half ago. Maybe we'll start with my cousin, Lily Murphy. Hey, Lily, so cool to see you here in our studio.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
Yeah, congrats on graduation and
Thank
all
you.
that. Although you're going to be a Bobcat, so no, congrats on that. I've always joked that I'm a fan of Grizzly athletics, but I'm a fan of Bobcat academics. So
there you go.
Yeah. So we were talking before your trip. I was like, that is so cool that you get to go get a personal tour of Auschwitz from Eva Kor, because there's only so many of these opportunities left, and we didn't know how few opportunities there were left. Talk about your trip and everything leading up to it.
It was such an amazing experience. Taking Mr. Stanton's genocide class really opened up our minds to the outside world. I mean, in that class, we talked about things that no one else really wanted to talk about. And so it was really eye-opening. And then he gave us this great opportunity to go to Poland with Eva Kor. It was amazing. She spoke in Auschwitz, and it was breathtaking to hear her stories. Like, when you're actually there, that makes it almost like come to life when you're at Auschwitz. So that was amazing too.
I've seen stories in polling out here recently that there's a lot of young people that don't even know what the Holocaust is. Does that surprise you that other young people don't even know what it is? Yeah,
we traveled with a group of girls from Miles City too, and it was kind of crazy because them even growing up in a smaller town than Billings, they said that they didn't hear about the Holocaust when they were young. And I mean, we did hear about it when we were in elementary school because we read books about it, but they had no idea before they got to high school. And it's amazing because we were talking to Eva probably halfway through the trip, and she was saying how she really wants to make a law that requires high schools to have a genocide class or a class about the Holocaust. And so that's what we really want to help try to push towards too.
Yeah. So what was it like actually being there? Because I've interviewed other past West High students who've done this trip before, and other friends from across Montana. But really, Eva Kor she's almost become like one of our own. She's an honorary Montanan because so many people got to know her through Rob Stanton and Rocky Erickson and their efforts.
Yeah, she was amazing. Coming to West, I mean, that really made everyone feel close to her and really understand her story, I guess. But she talked about forgiveness, wanting everyone to forgive, and I think it was an important message that everyone just needed to hear.
The New York Times had her obituary over the weekend. Known as the Woman in Blue for the outfits she favored, she had boundless energy. And Keel Majewski, who was the first executive director of the Candles Museum, which is the museum that she helped start back in Indiana, he said this. He said, people would see pictures of her and think, here's a 4'9" sweet little old lady. And I would want to quickly disabuse them of those notions. She was a nonstop bulldozer. Yeah, so 4'9", this lady was tough, wasn't she?
She's a spitfire for sure. She's so funny. Listening to her talk, it's just cracking jokes at Auschwitz. It's kind of funny to hear her so happy in a place where, I mean, they took her family. So, yeah, it is.
She reminded me kind of Ben Steele, the Bataan Death March survivor. And I don't know if any of you ever got a chance to see him. Of course, Ben Steele Middle School is named after him. But, you know, I remember, I think it was at his birthday celebration, and somebody asked him how life changed after surviving the Bataan Death March, and he said, "Well, I don't walk much anymore. I drive everywhere." But I also asked him, why do he smiles all the time? And he said, "Well, look, I'm just so thankful for everything I have after surviving something like that." You've also got a couple other classmates with you here. Shay also was on the trip. Shay, tell me your last name.
Dolan.
Dolan, okay.
Yep.
All right. And you just graduated as well, so congrats to you.
Thank
You're
you.
headed off to the University of Montana.
Yep.
Describe this trip. What was it like actually being in Auschwitz with a survivor, Eva Kor?
I think that it was seriously a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It's one thing to have taken Mr. Stan's genocide class. He was an amazing teacher, and we learned so much from him, and to hear about Auschwitz and everything, but to actually experience it firsthand is something that I don't think you can take back. It's something that I'll remember forever, and I think these two can agree with me as well, that seeing it firsthand and going through and walking with a survivor and to see where exactly she was and to hear her little comments that she'd have and little anecdotes is something that I'll never forget. And it was truly so special.
She was, as a little girl, for those who don't know her story, I mean, she was tortured, her and her twin sister, because the Nazis were horrific, but especially they were fascinated with like twins, and so they did these just horrific medical experiments, and I wouldn't call them medical, they're just torturous experiments on them, and Eva actually survived that along with her sister miraculously. But she also delivers this kind of message of forgiveness even in the midst of all that.
Right.
Yeah. So what would she point out to you as you were on the trip of this personal tour of Auschwitz?
One thing that really stood out to me is she took us to the selection platform, and that's where the last time she ever saw her family again, and she would give a forgiveness letter to her dad and also a goodbye letter to her mom, and she read that out loud to us. And just to hear her say everything that she had to say to her parents was truly remarkable, and the fact that she also wanted us to understand the whole idea behind her forgiveness was something that I really don't know if I could personally do it, because it's such a horrific thing that happened to her along with her sister, and to lose her family. So for her to have so much forgiveness and love in her heart is something that is truly so special. And yeah.
What did you take away from it? Like how could she forgive somebody like the Nazis who had tortured her and her sister and just slaughtered and murdered, millions of people?
Yeah, it made me step back and think, oh my gosh, if I ever have a little problem in my life, or if I'm mad about something, I'm like, look at what Eva Kor had to go through. Nothing that I have to go through is at all compared to anything that she has. So her whole idea of forgiveness is something that I now want to hopefully broaden my spectrum with everything, and just know that all the stuff that she had to go through and that she can forgive is something that I don't really have any words to describe it.
Yeah, well, Shay, we appreciate you coming to the studio. I'll have you pass the microphone, because we also want to hear from another young lady who was on the trip as well, so we'll pass the microphone over to Marissa. In the meantime, Lily, did you have a part of the trip that stood out to you that you really remember of this personal tour with Eva Kor at Auschwitz?
Yes, like Shay said, those letters that she read on the selection platform, those were really powerful. Everyone was in tears by the end of it. She read a letter to her mom, and talking just about how she did live, and she, I guess, beat the Nazis. But it was amazing to hear her say that, and then talk to her mom about forgiveness, her forgiving the Nazis and telling her that everything is going to be okay. And that was very powerful.
Because as I understand it, if I remember right, basically her dad wanted to get out of Europe. He wanted to get out of there because he kind of knew what was coming, And the mom said, no, let's just stay with our fellow Jews for a little while longer. And then, of course, they got rounded up and led to the concentration camp. And so she had to forgive her mom for that as well. All right, next up. And Marissa, you also recently graduated from West High and were on this trip. Tell us your last name as well.
Nunberg.
Nunberg. Okay. Well, thanks so much for coming in. And you're off to the University of North Dakota next.
Yes,
so
definitely.
You've all got different backgrounds, headed to different schools.
Yep.
What stood out to you about this trip?
I just think standing in the different camps is just so surreal and almost like hard to picture like what was going on in the past. Just standing there and there's all these tourists and there's some people taking pictures of things that it's almost hard to understand like what horrific events happened there. It takes a lot out of you. Like it's a huge mindset you have to put yourself in to visit.
Do you think that we almost get so sheltered here in Billings, Montana? Just, there's bad things that happen in our backyard here too, but by and large, we live in a great country, a relatively safe country, that it's kind of easy to forget that, to realize that horrific things like this actually do take place.
Right, exactly. And you can look at pictures all you want, but just standing there, like the camps are so big and you just don't even, it's so hard to put it in perspective just not being there.
How do you think this changed your life, this genocide class at West High, going on this trip, or I guess maybe you're not at that point yet where it's just still so fresh?
I mean, because of how impactful the trip is, I think I'm still processing some things from there, but I'd say just from the genocide class and the trip, I think Eva's message of forgiveness is definitely something that I'm starting to implement in my own life. And also, I just think about things a lot more, and I just try and put my situations into perspective, like Shay was saying, that how big is my problem compared to Eva or the rest of the Holocaust.
Well, and I know one of the things that my friend Rocky Erickson, he's a sportscaster, so he likes to tell sports stories, but he also just he's so good at telling stories. And that's one of the reasons why he's kept going back to Auschwitz with Eva over these years, because he knows that people like Eva aren't going to be around much longer, as we just saw last week. And so somebody's got to tell their stories. So you all now have the opportunity to keep telling her story as well.
Yeah, definitely.
What went through your minds when you got the news? I know, Lily, you and I kind of heard because Rocky Erickson had called us because he knows Eva's son, Alex Kor, who's also been back here at Montana a bunch of times. And so we got the word. But then I think within 45 minutes of you and I getting the news, it was all over Fox News, New York Times, CNN, everywhere. So, Marissa, what was it like for you when you heard the news that Eva Kor, who you had just been in Auschwitz with, had passed away?
I just looked down at my phone and I had an email from Candles and I just clicked on it and I just started reading, and it just kind of hit you that you're just like, oh my gosh, that just happened. And it's still hard to imagine just because when we last saw her, she was happy and smiling and making jokes. But yeah, it's just hard to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it probably makes you realize just how lucky you were to get an opportunity like that.
Yeah, we're so grateful we got to meet her when we did.
Yeah, I saw there was this great YouTube video. Lily, maybe your mom sent it to me, but it was of the LA Children's Choir. Or actually, I think Alex Kor posted it to Facebook. It was the LA Children's Choir singing to Eva. I think this was last week, and it was just remarkable. But yeah, she didn't look like she was in her final days at all.
No. And her son being able to come there on the last trip, we were talking to her nurse afterwards too, and that definitely gives her strength, having her son there. And it's just devastating how she passed when he was there too.
Well, ladies, Lily, Marissa, and Shay, thanks to all three of you for coming in, and best of luck to all three of you as you head into college. And tune in at 9 o'clock. We'll have Rob Stanton and Rocky Erickson here to continue to remember the life and legacy of Eva Kor.
Yeah, thank you for having us.